Welcome back to another lesson with me, Mr. B. Today, we're going to overview how to do mastery check number 2. So for this mastery check, we're going to, watch this instructional video like it says right here. And if you're not ready to take this on as you're reading the instructions, go back and review the previous lessons on the eyes of oppression and mastering counter narrative, because you're gonna need to draw on your prior knowledge and what you learned about the 4 eyes of oppression and mastering counter narrative to get through this mastery check. What you're gonna do is you're going to read the introduction to Mumog, which is the series of short stories that we're gonna look at for this unit to give us an example of what to expect when writing a narrative. And you'll find the PDF down here in the Mumog introduction. When you open it, you'll find that there are 6 pages and they're double spaced, so fairly easy to read. As you're reading the introduction to Mumog, you're going to be tasked with identifying one of the 4 eyes of oppression and the master or counter narrative. So you're not going to be looking for an example for all 4. You totally could because they're all present. Same goes for the master and counter narrative. You could also look for sub-oppression as well. But you only need to find one for this mastery check and provide an example. And you're going to structure the example like it's present right below over here. So after you write the author says, you'll put a comma like it shows right over here, and then you're going to put quotation marks around your cited evidence. Quoted examples with proper citations, you have proper quotation marks, and then there's a citation at the end of your example. It's going to be parentheses, the author's last name, and then the page number. And one of the most important things that is very easy to miss is that period. Make sure that you have the punctuation when you're setting up your evidence. We'll have a separate lesson on how to properly set up evidence, but for right now, try your best to follow this example because this is something that we're going to continue practicing as we go through this unit and then when we shift over to a novel later on. If you scroll down, there is a rubric attached. If you'd like to learn how you can score a 10 out of 10 on future writing assignments, or to make sure that you're going to get maximum points on this mastery check, you can see what to expect if you want an 80% on your assignment, or if you want to level up and get towards that 100%, making sure that you're meeting all of these requirements. And to do that, we're going to look at a student example to see what did they do to make sure they got that 50 out of 50. In the introduction, Melissa writes, comma, quotation mark, a part of me wondered if I was being truly authentic, if I had to consciously do things to feel quote unquote more Filipino, end quote. And they have their parentheses, the author's last name, the page number, and that punctuation period at the end. Make sure you have that there. I've had to get a little feedback before we move forward. This is not my rule, this is MLA formatting. You want to change quotation marks within a set of quotation marks, especially if it's dialogue. In this case, it's a form of air quotes, or they're referencing something in the reading. They need to include single quotation marks, which is not something that we're fully aware of. We'll talk about that at another time. Let's continue. This quote shows that Melissa is struggling with internalized oppression and the counter narrative. I think this is because the majority of people around Melissa makes her feel like she wasn't Filipino enough. Her story represents the counter narrative because she talks about what it's like to be an outsider in a minority group. On page 2, Melissa writes, comma, quotation mark, I had read stories about immigrants in middle school. I read about Angel Island and Ellis Island, but those were stories from a long time ago, or at least ones my grandparents could relate to more than me, end quote. Parentheses, author's last name, page number, and the punctuation at the end right there, period, question mark, exclamation point. Depending on what is in the reading, you're gonna put that appropriate punctuation mark at the end after the citation. I think this is an example of the master narrative because there were more stories that older immigrants could relate to, but there were not many stories that people like Melissa could relate to. Unlike our timeline activity, she did not feel that a piece of history represented her or that she fit into the dominant narrative. So the student is referencing the critical concepts that we've learned: internalized oppression, the counter narrative, master narrative, and you want to make sure that you're showing your understanding of the concepts and where you found them in the introduction to Mumog. All right, I hope that was a thorough and helpful overview of what to do and what to expect for mastery check number 2. If you have questions or need help with something, go back and review the previous lessons on the 4 eyes of oppression or mastering counter narrative. I think a good rule of thumb if you need help is to ask 3 friends before you ask me. So ask 3 before me, ask 3 before Mr. B. But if you do still need help after doing that, go ahead and come find me in the classroom. All right, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.